Mr. de Rubeis, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
First of all, I'd like to ask you, what's your relation with the Dragoi family?
In 1996, I worked for a company in the UK, which was an international trading house, and they were doing privatizations in Romania, and I was sent to Romania to work on a privatization, at which stage I met Dan Dragoi. That privatization was a company called Convex at the time. They'd already done another privatization, which was Alum in Tulcea. And Dan Dragoi was then in the office of my UK company in Bucharest. And the head of that office was at the time General Victor Stanculescu, and under him was Dan Dragoi. Subsequently, General Stanculescu left and Dan Dragoi took over. So he was basically the general manager of the company in Romania. And I met Dan Dragoi through coming here to Romania, having been given assignments from the UK company, and one of the biggest assignments was the restructuring of Convex. I was here for the privatization of Convex, which was 1996-97, and that's when I met Dan Dragoi.
And how your relationship with the Dragoi family went further after this?
From there, because I was dealing with Dan Dragoi all the time when I was in Romania, we had a number of companies he was always involved. Fast-tracking, the relationship became very good friends. Friends in the sense that he was my nașul in Romanian. It's like my best man, my godfather, my wedding. He subsequently became the godfather of my children, he and his wife, and Bogdan Dragoi also, his son, became the nașul of one of my children. And I have 4 children, so we had a lot of ceremonies. And Dan was almost, I can say, because my family was in Australia, I can say Dan became my family. Yeah, going holidays together, dinners together, celebrating, anniversaries, special days, holidays. We became very, very good friends. Very good friends.
From very good friends and like family, something happened at home.
It certainly did.
Can you tell me what?
In 2014, I started to see a little bit of a change. In 2014, we had done a business where we made quite a significant amount of dividends, and those dividends were paid out. In 2015, I believe that Bogdan Dragoi then became the head of the SIF, one of the investment funds in Romania. And in 2016 was a drastic change. Dan was seen to be very powerful, well-connected. He was always well-connected. He belonged to an enterprise which was established from the old days of communism, and I think that carried through even to this day. He was a significant officer in an institution involved in intelligence services.
He admits this?
To me, he has, yes. And it's well known. Other people that I've met through him also, I've gotten to know, who are also the same enterprise. But in 2016, something was a little bit amiss, because we always in Convex, I became a member of the board of directors of Convex in 2002. I worked in Convex restructuring the company for my UK company since 1996, since its acquisition. In 2016, I saw a drastic change in that a lot of things happened, even against involving myself, to my detriment, by Dan Dragoi. And I don't know what it is. Although I've been in this country for a significant number of years, I'm still a foreigner. And so access to information sometimes is not so readily available. However, in 2016, we had a huge problem in that I was given the ability to go to Australia to have a look at a grain terminal, because we had decided to build a grain terminal in Convex. The company is Convex in Port of Constanza. And in Port Kembla, I knew that there was a grain terminal. I discussed the grain terminal in Port Kembla, which had been built in 1989. And in 2016, a new terminal was being built by Quattro Ports. And I was sent there to have a look, to get some ideas how things were going. It suited me because it gave me also a secondary excuse to go to Australia to have a look to get back. When I came back, Convex had purchased my airfares. They knew my itinerary. But when I was on the flight coming back to Romania, to Bucharest, they had called the board of directors meeting on the 17th of August. I knew nothing about it. I hadn't been served with a notice. We had access to emails, telephones. I mean, I was in contact with them. But no notice had been issued for calling of a board meeting. I arrived home probably after I landed at 2 o'clock in the morning. By the time I got home, it was 3:30. So the next day, I knew nothing. I stayed home. That was it. I went to the office. I was in the SolidMed office, which is Dan Dragoi's office, because SolidMed is the company which holds the shares in Convex, and Convex had 63% owned by SolidMed. And SolidMed was our company. Because in 2005, 2006, when my UK company decided to divest itself of its holdings in Romania, Convex was acquired by a group of us. Captain Cornel Idu, which was a significant businessman in Constanza involved in the board, and then Vero Panait, who was the general manager of Convex. Dan Dragoi joined in, and myself. I had been working in Convex full-time since 2002. I'd restructured the company, did capital increases. We decided to invest in the company by capital investments by building new conveyor belts. It was a continuous motion of investments and value creation for the company. Sufficiently so that Convex became one of the most efficient ports in the EU. Yes, absolutely. In 2014, when we saw that the company, we were dealing in minerals, basically bulk raw materials, iron ore, bauxite and coal. The steel industry was going down because I think the Chinese had flooded the market with steel products. And so we knew that the production of steel in the EU would decrease, and especially in Romania. We looked for alternatives, and the grain, we saw that the agricultural business in Romania was flourishing, was increasing yearly, increasing production of grains and exporting. In Constanza, the port has two parts to it, let's say. Let's say the inner harbour and the outer harbour. Our port is on the outer harbour. We have 1.4 kilometres of quay. We're a deep sea port, so we're open. Most of the silos are built on the inner harbour, and the inner harbour has a draft limitation. So a vessel that comes in can only be loaded so much until it gets close to the bottom of the seabed, then for the inner harbour. And then it has to be taken out in the open sea and then loaded, if you want to add more load to it, with floating cranes, which is a very lengthy process and not cost efficient. Convex, on the other hand, we have a deep sea port able to load Cape-sized vessels, and the grain terminal we envisage would load directly these vessels and leave without any problems. So grain terminal was definitely a good business to get into, and we started it. 2015, we had a short list. We had the calculations of the costs. Everything was fine. And as I said, 2016, I left in July, came back 17th of August. Everything was fine. And then a few days before the 19th of September, I heard through somebody in the office, Dan de Rubeis' office, that there was a shareholders meeting. I hadn't been advised. I'm a member of the board. There are 5 members of the board. Dan de Rubeis is a member of the board. We share the office. We're there together every day. I was never informed. So I decided to go down on my own. I turned up on the 19th of September. And I remember that day because it's my wedding anniversary. I park at the back of the building. I get into the entrance. I have a key card, so electronic door opens. Usually the shareholders meeting is held in a conference room at the back of the building on the ground floor. I go there, it's empty. Usually the table is laden with fruit, food, drinks, because people turn up, we have the shareholders meeting, we're relaxed, everything's good, but there was nothing there. So I walk upstairs. Viral is in his office, shareholders meeting. He says, it was cancelled. It was just a formality, it's been cancelled. Okay. Now, I know nothing about the board of directors meeting. It was only signed by 3 directors. Dan de Rubeis, Viral Pramais, and Bondanidou. Okay. 2 directors didn't sign the papers. I'd never been shown the papers. I stayed with Viral. We discussed other things because I was in charge of the corporate structure offshore. I would have to make sure that everything was in place, audited accounts, all the accounts were in working order, the bank accounts were all properly held, and every year when the audited accounts needed to be prepared, I would have to gather all the information and give them to the auditors, and they would be audited accounts. So we discussed some things that were required in preparation for these audits. There was no assembly, meaning there was no formal opening of a shareholders meeting. I mean, I was in Viral Pramais' office. His staff was around, but there was no assembly. So, fine. I stayed, I think, 2-3 hours, and I left. I then went to Captain Idou's office because I needed some documents from him, some personal information, which they sent me by email later on. I came back to Bucharest, and that was it. Everything was fine. I know that Dan de Rubeis was, we'd approached KPMG in 2015 to try and get state aid for the project, which we didn't qualify. We then held a shareholders meeting and decided to appoint PwC to obtain us state aid under a different program. PwC failed, or we didn't qualify again. So we didn't qualify to state aids in Romania. And in 2016, I was speaking to Dan de Rubeis, how's it going? It's going. And I noticed that Viral Pramais, I heard he was coming to Bucharest, but I would never see him. He would never call me. And I always told the finance director that I would like to be involved in the negotiations of the loan agreement. Was never informed of any meetings with any banks. My information was from Dan de Rubeis. Dan de Rubeis wasn't in the office much those days. And subsequently I found out later on that him and Viral were meeting in the city, but to my exclusion. On the 15th of December 2016, I was preparing myself to go to a law firm's Christmas party. And I received a phone call at about 7:30 in the evening from Bogdan Idou. And Bogdan Idou tells me, my father just got a phone call from Dan de Rubeis, asking that my father has to come to court the next day with I don't know how many millions of euros. I said, what are you talking about? And he said, look, apparently there was a capital increase. And I was shocked. I said, what do you mean a capital increase? I didn't sign any documents for a capital increase, did you? And he said, no, I didn't. Nobody in that, we don't know anything about a capital increase. This conversation, there was about 2 or 3 phone calls. Finally, Bogdan Idou was in Sofia, Bulgaria, doing some business. He said, look, I'm coming back tomorrow. Wait, don't do anything. My father said, just sit back. Okay. Sat back, I waited. The next day, of course, you concerned with what's going on? I call Vero Panay. He doesn't answer my phone. I call Madalena Militao, the legal counsel. She doesn't answer my phone. I call Dan Dragoi. He doesn't answer my phone. And I call Irina Opera, the finance director. And she kindly sends me a message. I cannot talk to you. Full stop. Well, wait. In the afternoon, Dan Dragoi drives to my house. We leave outside in the street. I said, Dan, what's going on? We're lucky. We managed to subscribe. We've got, it's okay. We've got more shares than what we had before. I said, Dan, what's going on? It was just, Cidex subscribed. And I said, what do you mean? I said, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you? What could you have done? You couldn't have done anything. He was in a mood. And I said, fine. Okay, we'll speak tomorrow. Captain Edo called a meeting on the Saturday, which I went to. I met in his office here at the Terrace Pub in Costanza. We met there. Captain Edo, Bob and Edo, myself. We had a discussion. Pursuant to that discussion, Captain Edo called for a meeting the next day on the 20th of December. And I was told to be at Bistro Frances at 12 o'clock. And so I went to this restaurant. I was shown into a back private room. As I walked in, there was Captain Edo sitting there, Dan Dragoi sitting here, and I sat here, where I am at the moment. We started talking. I was emotionally charged because I didn't know what was going on, and what is happening. And Dan Dragoi is a SEA officer. Captain Edo, I understand, is a SEDE officer. So I've never had any problems with them, but I don't know what's going on. We sit down, we talk, and then Viral Panay comes in. He sits over there in the corner with some documents, and he says, look, Cidex subscribed at the very last minute, look, 4:45. And I said, it's irrelevant for me. I mean, where did this capital increase come from? And Dan Dragoi said it was a mistake. It was a mistake. It was, under the state aid scheme, we had to do a capital increase, but it's because they didn't get state aid. So, but it was all a mistake. But we managed, look, we've got now 65% of the shares instead of 63. We talked. Captain Edo was sitting there. We talked. We kept on talking. And finally, it was agreed that they would redistribute the shares to Captain Edo and to myself in a certain amount so that we would go back to our original shareholding.
What was the original shareholding?
Original shareholding, when Convex was acquired in 2006, a new company was set up called Bulk Project. Now, SolidMet, where Dan Dragoi is the sole director, has been the sole director since we did the privatization in 1996, because SolidMet was the remaining company set up to only hold the shares of Convex. Bulk Project was set up to acquire the shares of the holding company offshore that would own SolidMet. So Bulk Project bought 100% of the shares of SolidMet. SolidMet held at that time, in 2006, I think it was 53%, 52, 53%. Through capital increases, by the time 2016, we were at 63%. We had 63%. We did capital increases. By the way, all of the capital increases were done by us. I handled all of the financing. It was our money in the group because I was in charge of all the group offshore. So Bulk Project was divided 55% owned by Captain Edo through Octagon, his company, and we had a Cyprus company called Befstras Holdings Limited in Cyprus, and we had 45%. So Befstras was 33 1/3% myself, 33 1/3% Vero Panay, and 33 1/3% Dan Dragoi, all equal shareholders. The deal was Captain Edu put up all of the money. He put up 12 million euros, and I have the documents where he's borrowed the money, where it's come, which bank, where it's gone, everything. And the deal was that we would repay the captain. I never received any dividends, in all the years. And Captain Edu and I've got also the transactions where all of the money that was paid to Captain Edu has been recorded. So that was all above board, everything is good.
Now, coming back, they said that you'll go to your original shareholders.
Original shareholders position.
Because what happened on the 19th of September when I was at Convex and there was no assembly. 19th of September is when I was there when the shareholders meeting had been called for, which was cancelled. In fact, wasn't cancelled.
It wasn't cancelled? No. You found out after?
Oh, I found out in December too.
In December you found out about this? Yes. So they lied to you continuously?
Yes, continuously. On the 20th of September, they held the shareholders meeting. At that shareholders meeting, the resolutions passed by the board of directors when I was on an aeroplane coming back to Romania, and I knew nothing about it. The shareholders resolution passed a capital increase resolution. Capital increase issuing 6 million new shares, where this capital increase would occur in 2 phases. Phase 1, which was for 31 days, was all existing shareholders could subscribe pro rata
in order to keep your position.
Then phase 2, any unsubscribed shares of the phase 1. Phase 2 was 3 days. So phase 1 was 31 days. Phase 2 was 3 days, of which Friday, Saturday and Sunday.
Come on, in weekend.
It's passed by the capital markets regulator. ACF passed it.
You can't subscribe only on a Friday, but it's all recorded. It's documentary. What happened is that Cinex subscribed in phase 1. SolidMed, who had asked for the capital increase to be done, didn't subscribe. So the 63% majority shareholder, right, didn't subscribe. The subscription price, the share value, 1 share of Convex in September 2016 was 22 RON. Okay? The subscription price is 2.5 RON in the first phase. In the second phase, it's 2.51 RON. And in the second phase, the capital increase is run on the basis of first in, first served. Whoever is in the front line gets first subscription rights. What we found out in February of 2017, because no documents had been registered, we found out that Mrs. Anka Dragoi and Mrs. Roxana Nikolai, Vera Panay's wife, so their wives, had each subscribed 2,050,000 shares. There was unsubscribed in the phase 2 because SolidMed didn't subscribe.
You didn't know actually about the... Yeah?
Not on the 15th of December is when I found all of this. The 20th of September is when we find out that we didn't find out that the wives had subscribed. Dan never told us, Dan Dragoi. He only said that they had obtained the shares, but not mentioning their wives. And we didn't ask because we thought it was them, because he said, we have more shares now than what we had. I presume he and Birol subscribed.
So, first in.
Anka Dragoi and Roxana Nikolai. Anka Dragoi was number 1 and number 2 on that list.
Now,
subscribing in weekend?
on a Friday.
On a Friday, before the weekend.
the subscription period starts on the 16th of December.
This is very interesting. Let's go back to the 19th of September. On the 19th of September,
Anka Dragoi buys 40 shares. First time, Anka Dragoi buys 40 shares of Convex.
So she becomes a shareholder for the first time.
On the 16th of September, Ruxandra Nicola bought 40 shares of Convex. So 16th of September, 19th of September, their wives become shareholders of Convex with 40 shares each. On the 9th of August, I find out, this is after the facts, going back and researching. On the 9th of August, Dan Dragoi had bought 40 shares. So Dan Dragoi now was a shareholder of Convex. Directly, not through the company, not in our shareholding, but directly. I had many shares of Convex in the old days, but I stayed with 2,250 shares.
direct shareholder. Just
To be there.
to be there.
Yeah.
When we look further, deeper into the situation, and bearing in mind that these two ladies now, having 40 shares each, are only allowed to subscribe, according to the prospectus the ASFE approved, in the second phase, which starts on the 16th of December, which should be 9 o'clock because it's at Raiffeisen Bank. Now, in the first phase of subscription, 8 branches of Raiffeisen are open to 8,000 shareholders for subscription. In the second phase, 1 branch is open, Bucharest. Now, the 16th of December is when the subscription period starts. I presume 9 o'clock in the morning. When the first subscription period finishes, which is the 14th of December, Vero Pinaitis Convex has an obligation to prepare a report and to issue that report to the stock market for publication to tell them how many shares have remained unsubscribed.
Now that report was issued on the 15th of December at 1 o'clock, 1300 hours. There was a list formed on the 15th of December of subscription people, and on that list was, the first place was Alexander Nicola, and the second place was Anton Dragoi. They subscribed at 1:15.
115.
Yeah.
How was possible?
That is the question.
Now for millions of shares.
Now, they then, right, were entitled to, when the subscription period started on the 16th, there was already this list, which I contend that list is invalid. Should be invalid. But nobody, ASFE doesn't care. Now, at 1:15, they subscribed, each 2,050,000 shares. The unsubscribed amount of total shares, because Solimet didn't subscribe, the others, there was 4,150,000 shares. They subscribed together 4,100,000 shares, leaving 50,000 shares for subscription for the remaining 8,000 shareholders. Now, according to a document of ASFE,
Only 8 shareholders subscribed.
all the shares were gone. And there is a newspaper article, which luckily a guy who was there on the 16th of December wrote the article, quoting people in the line. They said, "We're all lined up because we were told that the majority shareholder didn't subscribe, leaving the shares for the people to subscribe in the second phase." It's in the paper. No, I can't influence that because that's from the 16th of December. It's in the paper. And there's other things in that newspaper. However, nobody knows any of this until February, when Convex sends the notice of the shareholding of Anca Dragoi and Ruxandra Nicola, which I think is in February of 2017. That's when everybody finds out what's going on. However, coming back to the meeting that we had with Captain Edu, Dan Dragoi, Vero Panay, and myself, which was on the 20th of December 2016, I shook hands with Dan Dragoi because I said, look, they bought the shares, 17.5% of the total of Convex was purchased by Anca Dragoi, 2,050,000 shares, at a 2.51 RON per share. They pay $1.1 million, or 1.1 million euros, sorry, for 17.5% of the company.
Of a company which was how much now, in your opinion?
Now?
Now, in 2022.
What? There is rumor on the market that Dan Dragoi has been talking to a Russian company, Swiss company, and a Middle East company. And the figure that he's throwing around is 350 million.
350 million euros. Wow.
Yeah.
Especially in this context, we'll go back to what happened there, because it seems like a recipe for stealing a company.
It is a clear-cut scheme. It's a scheme. It's a scheme. It is a coordination of Dan Dragoi, Vero Panay, of setting up a system whereby they put up a capital increase which is irrelevant, not required, and then the company that owns 63% of the company doesn't subscribe, and their wives subscribe. So the shares that SolidMesh should have subscribed were left for number one and number two, Mrs. Dragoi and the wives. Now, funny enough, I have a list now that in the subscription, Vero Panay and Dan Dragoi are there as well. Oh. But they only buy 1,500 shares each, behind their wives. So there is a lot of information which shows that it was a deliberate, planned setup in order to take 35% of the company under the control of their wives, or for their family, for Dragoi and Panay family. Because in April of 2017, the statute of Convex says that for a quorum to be established for shareholders' meetings, you need 45% present for a quorum. In April of 2017, they call a shareholders' meeting to amend the statute of Convex to say that the quorum now required is no longer 45, it's 35. And guess who has 35% of the shares?
Wives?
Yeah. It's so obvious. I filed a complaint to ANAF for transfer pricing. Firstly, I get a letter from ANAF saying that their decision will be secret. It's not to be made public. I wrote again, I am a person who is affected by this. I wish to know. I receive a correspondence from the ANAF, from the Public Relations and Communications Department, Galatz, for me to go to a meeting in Galatz with them. Public Relations and Mass Communication. No, the transfer pricing section is in Bucharest. I don't need to talk to your PR people. I want to deal with the transfer pricing section because I want to give evidence. I want to give them information. No answer. Finally, I get a phone call from a guy in where the Banasa tunnel is. There's an ANAF office, asking me to go to a meeting with a guy called Stefan Georgiou. It's ANAF. I said, okay. I go. I walk in, he sits at the table, and there's a blonde woman sitting at the table, which didn't give me her name. And he says, okay, we're listening. And I explain to him, look, this is left pocket, right pocket. This is just a transfer. They transferred their shares into family, but avoided paying the share price on the market, but only paid 2.51 RON per share. It's transfer pricing. And the guy said, but why are you coming to us? And I said, you called me, but we are taxed and imposed. And I went, but why did you call me? I don't know. It was...
So they diverted anything just to
everything. I complained to ASFE, the stock market regulator, capital markets regulator.
This was 2006.
17.
Right?
This is when I filed everything, okay?
Important which month, if you can remember, because in 2017, the president of the SFA changed in May. It was before or after May? Because Mr. Mișu Negrițoiu, who used to run ASFE,
Negrițoiu was still there.
The guy who wrote the Mișu Negrițoiu was still there. When I know, so is Mircea Ursache. Good friends, but I know Mircea Ursache from other states, and I know who he is. So, but this is the situation. Now, I write letters to ASFE, and ASFE writes me back saying, we've checked with Convex, and Convex said they've done everything properly. Full stop. Yes. I write more. I have all the letters. Everything is documented. I get nowhere. So I say, okay, I'm going to ESMA, the European Stock Market Authority. I'm going to go to the EU. I go to ESMA. I write a complaint. It has a template. We fill it in. I write to ESMA. What I didn't understand, I should have known, but I wasn't aware of it, is that ESMA then, what they do is they write to ASFE.
Yeah, it's just an intermediary.
And they ask us if they will receive the report, a complaint from this guy, what is your view?
What do you think ASFE is going to say?
Yes, everything was done wrong. It was fraud. It was insider trading. It's illicit. No.
They're fully covered by ASFE, Mișu Negrițoiu, and the other guys.
Mircea Ursache signed the ASFE. I have the ASFE report here. And a lengthy document, post facto, the specialized department dealing with this has said, no names, just has said, there is no insider trading,
With their wives there.
There is, everything was done perfectly. But what they put in that report is so wrong, okay? They say some non-legal things as their arguments, as their back, and it's all wrong. Now ESMA gets the answer back and said, look, this is the answer. What do you want to do? I can appeal. I go to court in Constanța. The first court case I start is I want to cancel the shareholders meeting of the 19th. Yeah, because there's no assembly.
Okay. You're not informed.
I'm not informed. And, you know, all of this happened without me knowing. I was on an airplane about the board of directors. It was all false. We go to court. We invoke the capital markets law, the companies law, and civil law. The judge wants the case to go ahead, but the other side is fighting, opposing, absolute nullity. And the capital markets law says that if you want to lodge a complaint or file a case, you have to have lodged the complaint within 15 days of the publication of the resolutions of the shareholders meeting in the Monitor Oficial of Romania, which is like their, documents. And you can only if you do it within 15 days of the publication. Well, I didn't know anything about until 2017, and I didn't have the chance to find out exactly what they were doing, because now, from the back with my lawyers, and I look at everything, it's obvious what's happened. The judge does invoke the capital market, invokes only the capital market law with that strict provision. My court case is cancelled. No evidence. I go to the Court of Appeal, cancelled. Same thing. I start another case against the change of the control issue about shifting the quorum from 45 to 35 because it's just they're trying to have a monopoly or control over the company. I lose that one as well. In July 2017, I'm attending now the board meetings, and I refuse to attend the board meeting unless they issue a call notice. So in April, they said, look, these documents that are signed, I'm not signing these documents. These are illegal, okay? And you have to issue a call notice. So I want it official. So they issued it first one, call notice for the board of directors meeting. We went there, we talked about some investments, and I said, look, it's not good to invest now. We're going into, building a grain terminal. Let's be honest. We decide to have a shareholders meeting. We call the shareholders meeting for the 31st of July. Between us deciding from the board meeting to the 31st of July, SolidMet writes that he wants to introduce a new agenda item on the shareholders agenda. And that agenda item is the revocation of Raymond de Rubeis' mandate.
You have been part of SolidMet.
No, I'm part of I'm on board of. I owned. We'll say indirectly, I owned 5% of SolidMet. Let's say, okay. Well, actually, 15. I own actually 15% of SolidMet. Okay, but SolidMet has never made any shareholders resolutions. They've never asked Bulk Project for it. They've even when the decision was not to subscribe. Dan Dragoy never called for a shareholders meeting. Bulk Project knew nothing about it. There's no shareholders meeting saying that Bulk Project agrees to SolidMet to dilute itself. None.
Right.
Now, the court case, the shareholders meeting has this new agenda item. I turn up on the 31st of July, and there's only me, Bogdanidou, Vera Panait, and the rest are lawyers. His lawyers, Viral's lawyers. One of them is Danilescu. Danilescu is, I think, complicit as in a lot of things because he was the lawyer preparing all the documents for Viral from the start. And funny enough, he used to be in a law firm called Maresh, Danilescu Maresh. Now the law firm is only Maresh and Maresh. And I've had a discussion with Mihai Maresh, but he told me in confidence, and I'm not going to break that confidence. But Danilescu is out. So I turn up to the shareholders meeting, and I say to them, what is the grounds that you're revoking my mandate? Because my mandate is for 4 years, and I have an unexpired term of 13 months. What is the valid grounds? What is it? What is it? Nothing. I wanted them to tell me negligence. I wanted to tell that you're not working in the best interest of the company,
At least something.
Some reason. No. But on the 31st of July, there's no quorum. All the lawyers are there. Viral is there. The other shareholder is there, but there's no quorum. It was 35%. So who's got the power of attorney for the quorum? The next day, the same people turn up, okay? They sack me. They terminate my mandate. One of those lawyers had the mandate.
So they fixed their loss.
So I want to know if the mandate was valid on the 31st of July and on the 1st of August. It just so happens the 1st of August is my birthday. So, nice slap in the face. Happy birthday. You're sacked. Get out.
So they totally take you out from Convex and any inmates.
Totally. Not only Convex, of the whole group. Yeah, because we have businesses in that group. I'm out of the group completely. Although I still own, okay, I have no access. They won't give me access to finance records. They won't let me know what they're doing. They're making all the decisions. I know nothing.
Your own godfather did
My
it.
godfather, yeah. My God. And let me tell you about my godfather, right? In 2005, 2006, 2006, I separated from my wife. We had, unfortunately, things didn't work out properly. We had 2 children, but it was going on for a while, and my wife went in a different life, and we decided to split. I had nowhere to live. I stayed in Dan's house for 6 weeks.
That close.
Yeah, we were that close. We were that close. Holidays, parties, birthday parties, lunches, dinners, restaurants. He was the closest thing I had to family in Romania.
Well,
But-
yeah, we were that close.
But why did he want to do this, and why did he want to do this in 2016? No, before.
Something happened in 2000, I think, 15, 14, 15, 16. Something was going on which I have no access to, but there's something was going on. Because he was still an active general. He was